Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel, where we get real about mental health. Today I'm diving deep into something that silently affects millions, but often hides in plain sight. Depression. I'm not talking about feeling blue after a Netflix breakup scene or when your favorite team loses. I'm talking about that invisible weight pressing down on your chest, that color-draining filter that turns your vibrant world into shades of gray. I've danced with this demon myself. Those 3 a.m. staring contests with the ceiling, questioning if anyone would notice if I just disappeared. I'm not claiming to have fancy letters after my name, but I've walked through the darkness and found my way back, picking up wisdom from both personal trenches and countless therapy sessions. So let's rip off the mask that depression wears and expose its disguises, in language that actually makes sense. No baffling psychological terminology, just real talk between friends who've been there. Let's get something crystal clear right from the jump. Everybody feels sad sometimes. That promotion you didn't get, that situationship that crashed and burned, that plant you somehow killed despite it being impossible to kill. These things sting, and they're supposed to, but clinical depression? That's an entirely different creature altogether. It's not just carrying extra emotional baggage. It's like someone secretly replaced your bones with lead while you were sleeping. Suddenly, brushing your teeth requires the mental preparation of climbing Everest. Tasks that used to take minutes now consume hours, if you can do them at all. And that voice telling you to just think positive or choose happiness? That person has clearly never experienced the gravitational pull of true depression. It's not a mood that coffee can fix or a character flaw that needs bootstrapping. It's a legitimate medical condition that warps your brain chemistry, like a funhouse mirror, distorting everything you experience. Here's the silver lining, though. Depression, despite its suffocating presence, can be treated effectively. But spotting it is like detecting carbon monoxide, invisible, yet potentially devastating. So I'm breaking down the warning signs that depression might be infiltrating your life. Before we dive in, remember this. Checking a few boxes doesn't automatically mean you're clinically depressed. But if these signs have been your unwelcome roommates for weeks, stretching into months, it might be time to bring in professional reinforcements for this battle. Let's unmask depression's emotional disguises first. And spoiler alert, it doesn't always wear sadness on its sleeve like the movies suggest. Sure, persistent melancholy might be depression's most recognizable costume, but this chameleon has an entire wardrobe of deceptive outfits. For many people, depression arrives as a soul-sucking numbness, that peculiar sensation of being completely hollow inside, like someone scooped out your emotional organs with an ice cream scoop, leaving behind nothing but an empty shell going through automated motions. Or perhaps it shows up as unexpected rage, snapping at your partner because they breathe too loudly, or nearly having a breakdown because the grocery store moved the peanut butter to a different aisle. That hair-trigger irritability that makes you unrecognizable even to yourself? Classic depression in disguise. Then there's a suffocating hopelessness, that unshakable conviction that nothing will ever improve, that this emotional wasteland is your permanent address now, with no possibility of relocation. The most insidious emotional symptom, the one that blindsided me completely, was anhedonia, depression's joy-stealing superpower. Imagine your all-time favorite meal, the one that always makes your taste buds sing, suddenly tasting like cardboard. Your beloved hobby now feels like pointless busywork. Your favorite people, their presence barely registers. I vividly remember sitting through a stand-up comedy show that previously would have had me crying with laughter and not even cracking a smile, just thinking, what's fundamentally broken in me that I can't feel anything positive anymore? As if depression weren't cruel enough. It simultaneously convinces you that you're completely worthless, while also making you believe that your inevitable failure will somehow catastrophically impact everyone around you. The paradoxical feeling of being both insignificant and yet somehow still capable of ruining everything. Some days bring tsunami waves of emotion, unexpected sobbing during commercials about paper towels, while other days you're desperately trying to feel something, anything, even sadness, but encountering only that vast, terrifying emotional flatline. Despite what society might suggest, depression isn't just some abstract emotional state floating around in your mind. It literally hijacks your physical body, in ways that can be both bewildering and debilitating. Your sleep patterns often become completely unrecognizable, either metamorphosing into a hibernating bear who somehow needs 14 hours of sleep, yet still wakes up feeling like you've been hit by a freight train, or transforming into an unwilling night owl, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. while your thoughts perform Olympic-level gymnastics routines. Your relationship with food typically swings dramatically in either direction, suddenly finding yourself standing in front of an empty refrigerator with zero recollection of devouring everything inside, or realizing you've somehow forgotten to eat for an entire day because food is all the appeal of cardboard soaked in dishwater. And then there's a hallmark depression symptom that gets criminally overlooked: the bone marrow deep exhaustion that defies logical explanation. This isn't your garden variety tiredness after a busy day. This is a kind of profound fatigue where brushing your teeth feels like you're being asked to construct an entire skyscraper with your bare hands. I still vividly remember the morning I broke down sobbing on my bathroom floor because the prospect of showering required more energy than my entire being could summon. The thought process went something like, first I have to undress, then turn on the water, adjust the temperature, step in, get wet, apply shampoo, rinse. And suddenly this utterly ordinary routine felt as complex and overwhelming as performing open-heart surgery. My body moved through molasses, each gesture requiring conscious effort, as though some invisible force had cranked up Earth's gravity setting just for me. Even my speech slowed down, with noticeable delays between thoughts and words. Then there's depression's talent for manufacturing mystery pain. Migraines that no medication touches, persistent backaches without physical cause, digestive systems that suddenly wage war against foods you've eaten your entire life. Your entire body essentially becomes an unreliable narrator, sending distress signals that doctors can't explain with blood tests or imaging studies. And yet these physical symptoms are every bit as real and legitimate as any traditional illness. Further evidence that the artificial separation between mental and physical health is nothing but an outdated, harmful fiction. Depression's most devious trick might be how it completely rewires your cognitive functioning, transforming a previously sharp mind into something that feels like it's operating through static-filled television reception. The infamous depression brain fog descends like a thick, disorienting mist that makes concentrating on even the simplest tasks feel like attempting advanced calculus while drunk. You might find yourself reading the same sentence 7 times without comprehension or trailing off mid-conversation, because your train of thought is not only derailed but completely vanished from existence. I once spent 45 minutes. I timed it, staring at my email draft trying to remember the word schedule, not some obscure SAT vocabulary word, but schedule, a word I've used thousands of times throughout my life. My brain simply refused to retrieve it, like a corrupted file on a damaged hard drive. Decision-making capabilities deteriorate to a genuinely alarming degree. Not just major life decisions like career changes, but absurdly simple choices like what to eat for breakfast. I distinctly recall having a complete emotional breakdown in my bedroom, sobbing on the floor surrounded by different shirts, utterly paralyzed by the monumentally insignificant decision of what to wear. It wasn't about fashion anxiety. My brain literally couldn't complete the basic processing required to select a single item of clothing. Meanwhile, depression installs this insidious cognitive filter that systematically transforms neutral or even positive events into evidence of your inadequacy or proof that the universe is fundamentally aligned against you. Your colleague doesn't smile when passing in the hallway. Obviously, they've discovered what a fraud you are and now despise you completely. You receive 95% positive feedback on a project with one minor suggestion for improvement, clearly irrefutable evidence that you're an irredeemable failure who should never have been hired. And then there's rumination, that torturous mental hamster wheel where your brain obsessively replays embarrassing moments or perceived failures on constant loop, as though your consciousness has been hijacked by a sadistic DJ determined to play only your greatest hits of shame and regret. Most seriously, depression often introduces thoughts about death or not existing. Not necessarily active suicidal planning, but persistent thoughts like, everything would be easier if I just wasn't here anymore, or I wouldn't mind if I didn't wake up tomorrow. These thoughts aren't character flaws or weakness. They're symptoms of an illness, as real as a fever or rash. And like those physical symptoms, they signal that your brain desperately needs professional care and treatment. Depression fundamentally transforms how you behave, often in ways so gradual that neither you nor those around you immediately connect the dots to recognize what's happening. The social butterfly metamorphoses back into a reluctant caterpillar, withdrawing from connections that once energized them. The dedicated friend who never missed a birthday becomes a perpetual canceller with an arsenal of increasingly creative excuses. The behavioral metamorphosis frequently begins with subtle social retreat, not dramatic declarations of isolation, but the quiet accumulation of declined invitations and unanswered messages. You might still show up physically to social gatherings while having perfected the art of emotional absence, nodding at appropriate intervals during conversations while your mind is miles away, trapped in its own dark echo chamber. Depression often creates Oscar-worthy performers, people who have mastered the devastatingly convincing "I'm fine" while absolutely crumbling inside. You develop the split-screen existence, the public persona who smiles, meets deadlines, and functions just enough to avoid concerned questions, while internally you're desperately treading water in an ocean of despair. I personally maintained this exhausting double life for months, receiving compliments on my work performance while secretly crying in bathroom stalls between meetings, the ultimate high-functioning depressive. Many people find themselves increasingly turn to alcohol, cannabis, or other substances, not for recreation, but as makeshift emotional anesthesia. That glass of wine that used to be an occasional pleasure becomes a nightly necessity just to quiet the mental chaos enough to fall asleep. The weekend edible becomes a daily requirement just to tolerate existing in your own skin. These coping mechanisms provide temporary relief but ultimately feed the depression monster, creating cycles that become increasingly difficult to break. Meanwhile, your living space often begins to reflect your internal landscape. Dishes piling up, laundry mountains forming, unopened mail accumulating. Not because you suddenly become lazy, but because depression systematically strips away the executive functioning required for basic household management. Work performance typically suffers too, though high-functioning depression sufferers might pour what little energy they have into maintaining professional appearances while everything else collapses. Even fundamental self-care routines disintegrate. Showering feels like an insurmountable challenge. Dental hygiene becomes negotiable. Changing clothes seems pointlessly exhausting. What makes these behavioral changes particularly insidious is their incremental nature. They don't happen overnight in ways that trigger immediate recognition, but accumulate gradually like sediment, eventually creating a lifestyle so far removed from your authentic self that you barely recognize the person you become. If you've been furiously nodding along to these signs, mentally checking boxes like you're playing the world's most depressing bingo game, especially if these symptoms have been squatting rent-free in your life for more than a couple weeks, please hear this next part with your whole heart. You absolutely do not have to continue suffering like this. Depression is staggeringly common, exceptionally treatable, and absolutely not a lifetime sentence unless you choose to serve it. The uncomfortable truth is that depression rarely resolves completely on its own. Like any serious medical condition, it requires appropriate intervention. First step, connect with a healthcare professional. Ideally someone who specializes in mental health. But your primary care doctor can be an excellent starting point for referrals and potentially medication, if appropriate. Despite what stigma might whisper, taking medication for depression isn't cheating or taking the easy way out any more than insulin is cheating at diabetes or glasses are cheating at vision. If your brain chemistry needs recalibration, there's zero shame in pursuing treatments specifically designed for that purpose. Simultaneously, consider reaching out to a trusted friend or family member, not necessarily for solutions, but for witnessing. There's profound power in simply having someone else acknowledge your struggle and stand beside you in it. The simple act of verbalizing, "I think I'm dealing with depression," can create tiny cracks in depression's isolating walls, letting slivers of light penetrate the darkness. Throughout this process, practice radical compassion toward yourself. Depression is neither a character flaw nor a punishment. It's a complex condition influenced by genetic, biochemical, environmental, and psychological factors far beyond your control. Recovery isn't linear, either. Expect complicated cycles of progress and setbacks rather than a straightforward upward trajectory. Different treatments work for different neural landscapes. For some, talk therapy creates transformative breakthroughs. Others find medication provides a biochemical boost needed to engage with therapy effectively. Still others discover that lifestyle interventions like exercise, nutrition, and sleep hygiene create profound shifts. Most often, some personalized combination of approaches yields the most substantial results. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, please treat this as the emergency it genuinely is. Immediate intervention can be life-saving. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 988, connects you instantly with trained crisis counselors available 24/7/365. Remember this fundamental truth. Reaching out for help with depression isn't weakness. It's an act of immense courage, profound self-respect, a declaration that you deserve better than what depression offers. Thank you for staying with me through this emotional deep dive. If you're currently battling depression, whether the familiar adversary you faced before or a mysterious new invader you're just beginning to identify, please know that you're part of a vast, invisible community of fellow humans fighting similar battles behind closed doors. Depression thrives in isolation, convincing each of us that we're uniquely broken, uniquely unworthy, uniquely beyond help. But that's perhaps its cruelest lie. You are neither alone nor beyond healing. If this video helped you recognize depression's fingerprints on your life, that recognition itself is an enormous first step toward reclaiming your well-being. If you know someone drowning in these same waters, someone whose light seems dimmed, whose joy seems muted, whose energy seems perpetually depleted, please consider sharing this video with them. Sometimes having our experience named and normalized by an outside source makes it infinitely easier to acknowledge what we've been denying. Remember that healing from depression isn't about returning to exactly who you were before. It's about integrating this experience into a newer, deeper understanding of yourself and your resilience. Depression can be unimaginably painful, but many who've traveled through it discover unexpected gifts on the other side. Increased empathy, deeper authenticity, greater appreciation for joy when it returns. Take exquisitely gentle care of yourself, beautiful humans. You matter more than you can possibly know. Until next time, this is your reminder that even the darkest night eventually surrenders to dawn.